Folks, cue the meme of the old lady there from the Titanic movie where it's like, it's been 84 years because it feels like it's been 84 years since the New York Mets had themselves a victory. Yeah, here we are. How we doing, all you amazing Mets fans watching live on a replay? It's your guy Wardy here, and we finally have an amazing victory to break down. The poise finally showed up, and all it took was him facing one of the best young right-handers in all the National League, and Wizarowski, and they absolutely beat him to a pulp in just the first 4 innings of this ball game. How we doing, folks? I want to see those W's spam in the live chat right here, right now. Let's spam it going. Let's get the hype going. We deserve this, and as fans, we needed this, okay? I understand that the day did not start pretty. The Clay Holmes disaster class where he wasn't a problem, but he's pulled after 90 pitches, and then Reed Garrett is more like Reed Trash Can, getting absolutely nothing there. We're going to rant about what went wrong for the Mets today. Don't you guys worry, but we're going to first start the show by breaking down what happened in Mets land. That is certainly a positive. So again, I want to see those W's spam right here, right now, everybody. First, chiming in live on our replay for our latest New York Metropolitan postgame show, presented by our amazing sponsors here at BetUS Sportsbook that we'll get into shortly. SeatGeek that has you covered for all your ticketing needs, as well as all of our other amazing sponsors here, everybody. Frank Sessa, thank you for the donation. About time, indeed, my friend. We actually won a game. Wow, I know, Kevin. Pinch yourself. You almost feel like you're dreaming, because that's exactly it. We are not used to victories as of late for this Mets team. Who would have thought that 2.5 weeks ago, a team that was 21 games above 500 could find themselves just 10 games above 500 entering tonight's game 2 of a doubleheader set after getting absolutely curb stomped where the bats roll over after the early deficit happens. The Mets did not record a single hit after they had that demise of a 6th inning in game 1 of this doubleheader, but in game 2 they show out big time, headline by Brandon Nimmo, more like Brandon Hemmo with the grand salami heroics. We're gonna break down what worked so well for Brandon Nimmo today as he was in leadoff. Francisco Lindor got the start at DH there in the 2-hole for the first time outside of the leadoff spot since mid-May of 2024. Carlos Mendoza said pregame that this was solely a one-game thing, knowing that they want to have a heavy emphasis behind having lefty batters in the lineup. And Lindor even went on to say post-game that he did not nap in between games like he typically does during doubleheaders, because he spoke to Mets starters that actually gave him key pointers on how to approach the young right-hander, which the Mets absolutely beat up to a pulp. Headlined by Mr. Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor. Because not only was it a big game for Francisco Lindor that we're going to break down big time, innings 1 through 9, not only today's victory, but also the loss here a little bit later on the show, guys. Not only was it a big day because it was his Puerto Rican jersey night there at Citi Field, the giveaway to the first number of thousand of fans. And then we saw, yes, he was officially named finally Francisco Lindor. Thanks to all you amazing Mets fans for voting him in. He is officially a 2025 NL All-Star at shortstop. So happy for Francisco. Long overdue. Miss me with the nonsense about him playing poorly this past month. I know he has not performed nearly as well the past month. That goes for a lot of guys on this team. But 1 month of baseball should not dictate what has been beyond deserving of Francisco Lindor. Really, since year 2 of being in this Mets line, a part of this group, he has been deserving of being an all-star starter, yet he hasn't even found himself in the all-star game. So Lindor's finally in that category. Deservedly so. Rightfully so, everybody. But let's continue to break it all down. Let's see these reactions live and replay in the chat. Again, thank you guys kindly for hitting that like and subscribe button as you come in. We're going to break down all the latest here in Mets land. Not only their victory 7-3 here against the Milwaukee Brewers, but we are certainly going to get into what is not happening, which was their game 1, which was far from a victory. A lot of frustration there. We're going to get into all the pros and the cons and everything happening in between with this Mets team right now. But thank you guys again kindly for spamming those donations, the likes, and of course the W's. That's what I want to see him spam more than anything in the chat as you guys first chime in. Chris Norton with the $5 holla. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Pat W with a $5 holla. Horrible first game. Second game was a gem. Can we please stop seeing Marte and Kurt Vientos in the 2-hole? I 100% hear where you're coming from. We'll expand more on that, Pat. Thank you kindly for the donation. Alvin with the $2 holla. How we doing, Alvin? Happy to have you in here, my friend. Wardy, we not far from first place. Crazy Bart. I know. It's absolutely insane. Entering game 2 of the doubleheader today, the Mets were just 2 games out of first from the Phillies. That's why this season is long from over. But obviously, we know that this Mets Mets team needs to get back to consistent play, because after that game 1 loss in the doubleheader, the Mets had a 3-14 stretch over their past 17 games, the worst stretch of baseball that they've had statistically since the 2018 season. So not only was tonight's victory needed, but it was imperative that they had it to make sure that they at least avoided another series loss for now. We'll see how they perform tomorrow night in a huge Game 3 rubber match that we will have you covered here live for a watch party and a post-game show, everybody. Be on the lookout. I will be live with Draftneck Mark and Mike from Stark Raving Sports, good friends of mine and great content creators as well. All Mets fans, you guys will see it live here on YouTube starting right around 7 p.m. Eastern, and then we will be live there, not only in the Playback app where you guys can watch a Mets game in real time. Go to playback.tv/WardyNYM. Check it out. We have almost 400 members there, guys. You'll be able to connect your MLB TV subscription. It's that easy, and then we'll have post-game coverage for you guys, at least with yours truly, if not with a guest as well there once the game concludes. Hopefully it's a big one. How we doing, Alvin? Again, thank you for the donation. Let's see, Elbow, how we doing, my man? Gota and Fury, $5 holla. Feel better, David. Thank you so much again for the donation. I appreciate that. Let's see, feel better, David Ardilla. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's see, Yoshima with the $2 holla. Massive win. Take this series tomorrow, and we back. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to go to the lengths to say we back. The Mets need to have a consistent winning streak and actually need to start hitting with runners in scoring position before Wardy's going to go the lengths to say the boys are back. A lot more work to do. A patchwork and a little victory like tonight ain't going to change too much, but it's about what you do in the coming days, which I think is going to be a very important thing. Andres, thank you kindly for the $2 holla. Thank you so much for chopping in, my man. Nolan, Jester, Eric, Alvin, great members. Bob, how we doing, my man? Truman, how we doing? PB9, great member. PB, thank you so much for whatever you sent my way. You and Dave Kaplitz, I need to get to the P.O. Box ASAP and check out what you sent. Thank you kindly for that. How we doing here? We got Sanders, Rebecca going up the list. G Money, Chris Norden, Nolan, Rose, how are you going up here? We got Eric Douglas, great member. We got Scott Sandler, Christian, how we doing? Pat, William going up here even more. We got LG, we got Buffalo, we got Kevin, we got Daniel, we got all you guys chiming in live at a replay. Robert, my man, Robert Nemar, TTV, how we doing, baby? Lordy, we're all in here. Bryce, all you guys, come one, come all. We'll get to as many of your comments, questions, and concerns as possible as we break it down. But folks, I don't remember the last time we did this. I mean, I really do remember, but it feels like it was forever ago, 84 years ago. Instead, folks, it goes back to that final game there in that 4-game set between the Mets and the Atlanta Braves, and that was what we called a victory. So without further ado, everybody, let's let it rip as we always do with the one, the only, the official, finally we can do it first time in a hot minute, WardyNYM post-game jingle. Let's go, baby. Let's do this. Man, was that needed. Shout out to my guys, Jordan and Greg, as always, with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Same way I got to shout out our amazing sponsor real quick at SeatGeek, everybody. If you guys don't know SeatGeek and you want to save money on your Mets tickets, well, listen further, because I have you covered with SeatGeek. Over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today, everybody. And the reason why SeatGeek is a channel-wide sponsor all season long is thanks to you, the viewers, for utilizing our promo code WARDY10 down below for 10% off your next ticket purchase. But in case you want to know more about SeatGeek and why you should utilize them, is exactly why I've been utilizing them well before they became a sponsor here on the platform. It has everything to do with their app, as you guys see here, how easy it is to navigate and how easy it is to find the right tickets, and their grading scale system from red to green and color coordination to 1 to 10 on the grade. What that means is if it's in the 1 through 5 range in the red, it's not a good bang for your buck and you're spending more than you otherwise should. If it's in the 7 through 10 range, it's a great bang for your buck, and you should absolutely seek those tickets there and the SeatGeek app, everybody. So whether you want them for Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, different types of sports tickets, you name it, SeatGeek, of course, will have you covered. So head over there, everybody, and utilize our promo code WARDY10, link down below in the description today. And thank you guys kindly again for utilizing our promo code here. But now let's hop right back into this. In a typical Wardy fashion, I gave the jump scare by accident. You know it's going to be a good night when that happens, everybody. And thank you again all so much for chiming in live at a replay. Very amped up to break down what we we have to get into in Mets land, and be on the lookout as we're going to have a big video dropping early tomorrow for you guys. A lot on the update front. There's a lot that's happened in Mets land in the past 24 hours alone that I got to fill you guys in on, as well as more things happening in the farm too. So we're going to break that all down for you guys in a video dropping in the AM tomorrow. Be on the lookout for it. But today, everybody, the Mets, mind you, entered today's game with still a horrendous rotation of an ERA of 6.62 over this stretch of baseball, far and away the worst in the game. And Juan Soto, everybody, now has 70 plus walks on the season, most in Major League Baseball. So doing his best Bonds impression by getting that walks treatment. But one thing was evident with Juan Soto today, as much as it frustrates me to say, is that while Juan Soto, again, has dominated with the personal accolades, the individual efforts this season, he has continued, obviously, these woes with regards to scoring position. And while the Mets had this big victory in Game 2 that I'm really happy to break down, because the Mets, headlined by Brandon Nimmo, did in fact hit with regards to scoring position. There's no denying that there's a lot more work to be had here. And it's with guys like Soto that need to be better in that regard. As amazing of a month that he had there that we saw in the month of June, the best calendar month by a Mets player statistically ever offensively, with at least 9 to 10 home runs, 20 plus RBIs. What he did there in every facet of the game was fantastic. But when it came to clutching up, that's where he has continued to lack, including some underwhelming at-bats that we saw today. So because of that reason, everybody, we're going to break down more not only on Juan Soto, what's working right, what isn't working right for him. I also want to hear from you guys, especially because the Mets obviously got curb stomped in Game 1 there, sadly, after we saw that big blunder thanks to Reed Garrett in the 6th inning. But my question to you guys, especially after this Game 2 victory, when, mind you, in case you guys are wondering how this Game 2 victory looked, this is how the game ended with the lineup. This isn't how it started. I would just like to make that clear when you guys see what you're seeing right here. But as you guys can see, Brandon Nimmo, tremendous game. Do Mr. All-Star 2025 out of the National League starter. Love to see that, everybody. But what I liked a lot about tonight's lineup is the fact that, look, it was an adjustment. Facing the young rookie right-hander and Wizarowski, and knowing that you could really pummel him with those top lefty bats in your lineup. Having said that, this was such a productive day for this team offensively that you have to ponder and wonder if they should consider this again tomorrow. And if you ask me, it's kind of one of those things, it's kind of one of those things where if it ain't broke, why fix it? And so far, so good. So I think the Mets should ride with this again tomorrow, because it can't hurt them right now when you consider how much everything else has hurt them to this point over this past 2.5 week stretch. You have not been able to win consistently to save their life. All the more reason to at least give this an opportunity after having the that we saw in this night game. It was honestly really good to see. I got to be honest with you guys, I thoroughly enjoyed the vibes from the early startup of this game. It didn't at all feel like how the startup of Game 1 felt, and while Game 1 didn't feel like the worst thing imaginable, it didn't have the most comfortable feeling either. And as soon as obviously the Mets gave up those runs and it was a tie ball game, you knew that the likelihood of the Mets winning said ball game was not strong. But what was strong for the Mets in Game 2 of this series is kind of crazy to say, but had a lot to do with their pitching that we're going to expand on here in a second. And Huascar Brosman continues to be rock solid when he's been a spot starter for the Mets this season. Blade Tidwell, don't let that line fool you. 4.1 innings. He got his first ever career victory today at the Major League level. So shout out to Blade Tidwell himself. And he was nails. I have a lot of positive things to say about Tidwell that we'll get into shortly. Daniel Nunez did his job. Again, Dickie Lovelady might have been a bum last time out there, but he goes 1-2-3 tonight. I can't complain too much. Ryan Stanek got the job done. And Edwin Diaz, and when I see Ryan Stanek got the job done, he wasn't stellar, but at the end of the day, he wasn't the worst thing either. Edwin Diaz comes in, and Edwin Diaz was absolutely nails yet again for this Mets team, now securing his 17th save of the season, and now has 2 or 3. It's one of the 2 or 3 saves on, more than what we saw of 1 innings of work. So shout out to Edwin Diaz. Sugar for being as sweet as ever, but being spicy there on the gun with that high velo and those big strikeouts, striking out guys back to back to back that we saw. A lot to break down in this one, everybody, including the pros, the cons, all the in between. But again, thank you guys so much again for spending some of your evening with your guy Wardy here. Again, if you're first chiming in live in a replay and want to have your questions heard or answered, please relay them in the chat and I'll get to them as soon as I possibly can. To all my replay viewers, I want to know your biggest takeaway in the comments down below, not only from the Mets Game 1 loss tonight, in which they initially lost their first game today that we saw by a final score there of 7-2, but they made up for it big time in this Game 2 victory of the doubleheader, winning by a final score of 7-3. I want to see your biggest takeaways and who is your player of the game today, everybody, in this 7-3 victory. I will share with you mine as we get to it later on in this ball game. I'm curious who you have between guys like Nimmo, Lindor, and other key aspects to this team and their 7-3 win today. And again, guys, thank you so much for chiming in. Hit that like and subscribe on, as you guys always do. And one final thing for me before we actually get to breaking down this ball game is one question I have for everybody watching live on a replay right now. And the question is as follows: should the New York Mets go out and win tomorrow and secure the series victory, who do you think is going to be the key standout on either the offense or pitching end? Like, who do you think is going to be the top player for tomorrow as well? I'd love to see your predictions in the comments, as well as in the comments down below to all of our replay viewers. Thank you guys kindly for that. Pat W, thank you so much for the $2 holla. I appreciate that, Pat. Pat in the chat says the following, everybody. Also, McNeil needs some love getting it done. Oh, McNeil has been getting it done, absolutely. And I have been giving credit where credit's due. As someone who has not been the biggest, McNeil lover that we've seen over the years, I'm fully right to eat my words, especially when he's performing as well as he is right now. And not only McNeil, who's been looking rock solid with over 800 OPS, but there's many aspects of this team. And one guy that I think is not getting nearly enough love or nearly enough attention, in my opinion, has everything to do, literally everything to do with the fact that you get Mr. not just Jeff McNeil playing great baseball, but you're getting Brett Baty playing, in my opinion, the best baseball that we have gone for Brett Baty in a hot minute, everybody. Look at what Brett the Hitman has been doing. He's been hitting over 300 over his past stretch of games. He had tremendous defensive acrobats that we saw today as well, which I thought was fantastic to see. Baty just brings you stability at third base, where if his bat can at least be around league average, like let's say anywhere from a 95 to a 105 in the OPS plus or WRC plus, in that range, and be obviously an elite defender the way we know Baty is, like, I'll take that for now. I don't need anything too crazy there. I just need Baty to be productive, and he's been productive. And you want to know what I love so much about Brett Baty so much this season thus far, is that while it's been in limited sample sizes, Brett Baty has been the second most clutch hitter for the Mets, you could argue, this season. When looking at runners in scoring position, Brett Baty has been the second best contact hitter in that regard, only trailing Pete Alonso so far this year. And I'm not lying. You guys can link up Baseball Reference in the splits right now in case you think I'm joking. I got to relay this your way because Brett Baty is a guy that a lot of guys obviously wrote off many times, not just this season, but in years past. And the Mets have been absolutely in dire need of some key production there in that bottom half of their order, specifically 5 through 9. And it appears that they might not get that consistently still there because they have too much inconsistencies with their youth movement. But Brett Baty appears to be finding this little bit of a niche that's working right now between his great defense and obviously hitting it, whether it's opposite field, pulling baseballs really well. And while the power is going to fluctuate, Baty can do a rock solid job on getting on base at least a couple times a night. And again, playing that defense, I don't really have anything else to complain about. It's not like we can't ask for a star at third base, but what we could ask for at least is a little bit more consistency. And Baty's starting to give that there, and not as slight at all on Vientos, but Mark has not proven it consistently with the offense nor the defense this year, and I really do wonder kind of what his next steps with him after the Mets obviously utilize Vientos that we have seen in third base. But even when we've seen Mark at third base, there's been that lack of consistency, so I just don't see how it's benefiting him and his development whatsoever by actually keeping him in said spot. It's like you either keep him at DH almost full-time or you don't. Which one is it going to be? And the Mets are going with the latter right now, and you guys let me know. I just don't see how that makes any sense whatsoever when you bear in mind how much a young player is fluctuating with his defensive game as is. So yeah, let's go ahead. You're right. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're going to make things even more difficult for him. And that's why have him get a start at third base every 2, 3, 4 days. I just don't understand it. What is the future of Mark Vientos with this team? That's what I really want to figure out. As someone that is still a Mark Vientos truther, that I think that there's still upside with him, absolutely, but more with that bat than anything else. I think the Mets need to do their best to maximize that, because if Vientos can get at all back to what he was last season in his breakout year, that is a lethal weapon that you add to a lineup that already has multiple candidates to 20 to 30 home runs this year between Lindor, Alonso, Soto, Nimmo. You add Vientos, that's 5 right there out of your 9. Who's complaining? But the problem is that between inconsistency and obviously health, Vientos has unfortunately been a shell of what we've needed him to be this season as a key focal point in the heart of this lineup and the meat of that order. So until we get more consistency there, the more we raise question marks and the more we kind of wonder what's going to happen here when we get over there to the MLB traded line. Because there are many people that are saying in the chat right now that they want Vientos traded. I'm not going to go to the lengths to say exactly that right away, but what I will tell you is is I will be genuinely surprised if the Mets conclude the MLB trade deadline, which is right around a month out now, July 31st, everybody, a day before our official Wardy Day. Check out tickets still available, link down below. You guys want to hang out with your guy Wardy at a Mets game? Now you'll get an opportunity to do exactly that. August 1st, day after the MLB trade deadline against the San Francisco Giants. I hope to see you guys there. Link down below. But getting back into this, everybody, especially when we get to the MLB trade deadline, it's imperative for the Mets to be cognizant and wary of the assets that they have, and they only have more in-house talent blossoming on the infield front, from guys like Jet Williams, obviously, to Jacob Reimer, who soared big time in the minor leagues this year. Doesn't get talked about nearly enough in Jacob Reimer, and you'll see me talk more about Jacob Reimer in a future segment that we're going to have on the platform in the coming days with a prospect guru that many of you guys know by the name of Mr. Ernest Dove. Had a great conversation with Ernest. I can't wait to share with each and every one of you in the coming days, so be on the lookout for that. But needless to say, everybody, to just put a pin in it and get back to the top and actually break down this ball game now, I'm very encouraged with how the day ended versus how it started. A lot more work needs to be done, no denying that, but if there's one positive that we can at least take away from especially this Game 2 victory here, it's the fact that the Mets, when it came to actually hitting with runners in scoring position for a team that out-hit the Brewers today 9-7, they went a respectable 3 for 7. So again, not sexy, not perfect, but you need something better than nothing, because the Mets have been absolutely horrendous right now, and whether they make drastic changes to their coaching staff, which they're obviously not doing at the moment, we have yet to be seen. And PB9 sounds great, not a problem, but I certainly look forward to checking out. And again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Really, really do. Panicle with the $2 holla. LFGM, where do you get that hat? I need it. I actually looked up a baby Mr. Mets hat on Google. That's all I did, and that's where I found it, because I actually found another follower of mine, and she knows exactly who she is. I just rocking it because I think her boyfriend gifted it because the unisex hat. I'm just a baby Mr. Met, and my son Shay was born last year. I was like, I got to do something to kind of rock him every day in some way, shape, or form. I'm like, this is a perfect way to do it with a baby Mr. Met. So that's what we're rocking with today. So good luck finding the hat. But guys, without further ado, let's get into this one, everybody, and let's also show you guys real quick what things look like in the wild card standings, because the Mets are atop that first wild card seed at 49 and 38. The Dodgers, the Cubs, and the Phillies are obviously the top dogs out of the National League in general. They are just one game above the Brewers. They leapfrogged them after taking this victory today, and the Game 2 of the doubleheader, the San Diego Padres are just 6 games above 500. They've struggled mightily the past month that we've seen as well. They're in the third wild card, but so have the San Francisco Giants, so much so that they're out of a playoff spot by a full game. The St. Louis Cardinals somehow, some way, are above them right now, and the Reds and the Arizona Diamondbacks trail just a couple games out of the wild card there. So guys, without further ado, let's break down what worked so right in this Metropolitan 7-3 victory today, headlined by not only the dominance that was Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor on the offensive end, but a Mets pitching staff that was genuinely impressive when you consider how much of a blunder that they faced in the first half of this ball game. This felt like if the Mets were going to win a ball game today, it was going to be game 1 of this series. Certainly not game 2, yet that was a reality, and that is what ultimately happened, everybody. So as we continue on, as we get down to breaking more in Metsland, hit that like and subscribe on your way in. In the first inning, we would see the following, folks. Sal Frelick would pop out, William Contreras with a ground out, and Christian Yelich gets on there with a 2-out walk, and Jackson Trio strikes out swinging. We all know Jackson Trio very well. The man was tormenting this Mets team that we saw last season, not just in the regular season, but also in postseason play, as the Mets took those 2 out of 3 games there in the wild card. That was a big series, or however many games we had in the wild card, because everything's a blur. That playoff run was electric, but I also feel like when the Alonso home run happened, I genuinely feel like I blacked out for a moment, because I don't remember it too well until I actually go back and watch the highlights and my reaction. No, I'm not joking when I say that. Brandon Nimmo strikes that swinging there to kickstart the bottom of that first inning in Game 2 of this doubleheader. Francisco Lindor lines out, and then Juan Soto gets on with a 2-out walk, his 70th walk of the season, most in Major League Baseball. Pete Alonso would strike out Swinney, unfortunately, and that does it there for the first. As we get to the second, everybody, we would see Blade Tidwell would come in and replace Huasco Brosman. It worked a nice Squirrels first inning, and Bryce Terrain strikes out Swinney there. Good job there by Mr. Blade Tidwell to kickstart this one, especially that strikeout was nice placement that we saw by Tidwell, that he had the four-seam fastball, was a little up and away, but just dotted him and got him good. Then we got the Rhys Hoskins 1 out, 1 on with a walk. I shout out to Rhys Hoskins for being an absolute schmuck. I hate Rhys Hoskins. I absolutely hate Rhys Hoskins. Anthony Siegler flies out, and then Joey Ortiz flied out, and that did it for the second inning. So working around a one-out walk was Blake Tidwell getting us to the bottom of the second. And in the bottom of the second, the Mets would get on base yet again with 2 outs. This time, it's Brett Baty getting on for the first time today in this game 2 of the doubleheader with a walk, and then Ronnie Mauricio having a quality at-bat as well. Again, the 2 young lefty bats working Wizarowski early, and that was notable because you could tell his uncomfortability against these lefty bats. Between Baty and Mauricio getting on everybody, Hayden Senger then gets on with a little bit of an infield dribbler that thankfully allows him to be safe. Shout out to Hayden Senger as well. He called a fantastic game defensively, and he honestly looked fine. Like, Senger's one of these guys that Mr. Whole Foods, as we love to label him, if you guys don't know the story, Senger was in fact actually, or has been, going back to this past offseason, a guy that has been there working at Whole Foods outside of being a full-time minor leaguer just to make ends meet. And I 100% respect him for that. But Hayden Senger, after having a sample size with the Mets the first month of the year with Alvarez being injured, now with Alvarez down, even though he's red hot in the minor leagues. So we're going to expand on that in content for you guys tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it. Should be a really fun video to break out for each and every one of you. We see Hayden Senger, however, rip himself that infield single. So bases juice just like that, everybody. And here comes Brandon Nimmo. What does Brandon Nimmo do? He rips himself a grand salami. His 16th home run this season, an absolutely big blast by Brandon, and I was amped up because I was saying to myself, man, would this be amazing right now if Nimmo could, if not go yard, just at least go the gap, drive in a pair, if not get the bases to clear. Instead, Brandon not only clears the bases, but he rounds them himself with his 16th home run of the year, everybody, and that was 361 feet, polar right side, 103 off the bat, and that made it an early 4-0 New York Metropolitan lead. Already far and away the worst early start for Wizarowski in his young career. We'll take that. We'll take that pat on the back every single day of the week. I know the kid isn't the best in baseball right away, but he's electric. He's got a 96-mile-per-hour slider. He's disgustingly good, and the Mets were batting practice on this kid and for innings. We will take those victories for what they are, and shout out Carlos Mendoza. He deserves credit for this. Mendy went lefty heavy in this lineup today, and it worked. So again, the same way that we're going to call out Carlos Mendoza for when things don't go wrong, where we feel that he was a factor into it, especially for those who are upset with Mendoza pulling Clay Holmes on 90 pitches from game 1 of this doubleheader, are the same fans that also need to show respect and appreciate when things go in the right way and the right fashion after adjustments that he, the manager himself, made. So for that reason, I'm going to give a shout out to Carlos Mendoza for it. I did not love how the management went there in game 1. I'll expand on that. I don't think Mendy's at complete fault for the Clay Holmes situation, but at the same time, I feel like we could have done better there, and I'll get into those thoughts here very shortly. But I'm curious to know your thoughts, everybody, on Carlos Mendoza and what has been obviously an up-down season for him as Mets manager and an up-down season for this Mets team entirely. A lot of frustration going on right now. Sean MD, great member of 22 months. How we doing, Sean? How we doing, baby? Happy to have you in here. Please win tomorrow, guys. I hope we can build behind this, and I miss the 2024 squad so much. Hopefully when my brother named Sean comes back, we will get some of the vibes back. And speaking of your brother Sean, the Simone Southpaw, Sean Mania, we do have some key updates to share on that as well. So be on the lookout for that, guys. We will share that for you guys tomorrow. Manana, we got plenty to break down. And Zach Flagerday, he says, Sanger worked at Whole Foods and Escara was an Uber. Oh yeah, Escara, the backup for the Yankees that got the call this year. That's correct. Was an Uber driver, blue collar, New York backup catcher. That's awesome. That very blue collar. You're 100% right. Again, just trying to make ends meet, grinding it out the only way that they know how. Got to respect that. Also, shout out to my Knicks. Shout out to my friends here who are a fan of Mr. Brown getting the hire at head coach. It feels a bit more lateral, obviously, right now, especially with Tom Thibodeau being Tom Thibodeau. But at the same time, they felt that they needed a different voice in that locker room. We'll see if it's a difference. I liked Brown when he was with Sacramento. Did not like his defensive schemes whatsoever, and the defense was the Knicks' greatest demise that we saw at this playoff. So I'm really, really curious to see what the future holds for them, but I'm fairly optimistic here as someone who doesn't hate the hire in general. And with the LeBron connections too, that's just a completely different rabbit hole that's discussed for another day that you guys can check out at Knicks Media on YouTube, where my guy Richie does a fantastic job covering all things Knicks. I'll be with him this Saturday as I will be attending the Saturday's game with Draftneck Mark, Pat Hennessy, the Yankee fan that you guys love to hate, Richie, a big group of people, James Shiano as well from Mets Up, all of them. Gonna be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you guys there. We will be tailgating pregame as well. I'm gonna check out the Queens baseball tailgate that many of you guys may have seen on X, especially that my guy, the Pope, that I know has been leading the pack with Master Flip. And I don't know if Keith is gonna be there, but usually he's a part of that group as well. So that should be fun there in the parking lot before the game. And I'm getting on a crazy tangent right now, Wardy. Lock in. I know your ADHD is all all over the place, but we got to talk Mets baseball here, and that's fine, because after Brandon Nimmo ripped himself the grand salami to give the Mets the 4-0 lead, everybody, we would see Francisco Lindor have himself a day, baby. Lindor rips himself his 17th home run this season. We're going back to back. That's what the boys did here. Nimmo, Lindor go back to back. Ding dong, sayonara, you're out of here. Batting practice off the young right-hander Wazorowski, and just like that, everybody, we see the Mets up 5-zip in just the first 2 innings alone. Afterwards, Juan Soto would fly out, and what was a smoked baseball opposite field that just fell short there that we saw to the left side. That does it there for the inning, everybody. We then get to the top of the third. In the top of the third, Eric Haas there at catcher gets on with a walk. Then Sal Frelick with a fly out. William Contreras with a pop out. And I'm sorry, was Contreras at DH or who was? Yeah, Contreras was at DH. Just making sure. Sal Frelick with a fly out. William Contreras with a pop out. And Christian Yelich with a ground. That does it for still a clean inning of work there for Blake Tidwell in the top of the third. In the bottom of the third, we would see Pete Alonso with a fly out. Jeff McNeil there with a single. Tyrone Taylor with a line out, and Brett Beatty there with a fantastic snag there. Pardon me, not fantastic snag. I apologize. I meant to say that Brett Beatty grounded out after what was a fantastic snag by Rhys Hoskins, as much as that pained me to say. Rhys Hoskins did flash the leather there that we saw around first base, and that did it there for the inning. In the top of the fourth, everybody, Jackson Chourio would pop out. Bryce Drain with a ground out. Rhys Hoskins then rips his 12th double of the season, the schmuck that he is, but thankfully that's worked around. Another clean inning of work for Mr. Blade Tidwell, and the Mets are through 4. In the bottom of the fourth, I should say, we get to Ronnie Mauricio, who flies out. Hayden Senger with a fly out, but then Brandon Nimmo rips himself his second hit of the day. This time, not a grand salami. He's going to settle with a 2-out single instead, everybody. And that would do it for Jason Wazorowski's day, as his day would be done. His shortest final line yet of 3.2 innings, 5 earned run baseball on 5 hits, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts for Wazorowski on a 3.2 ERA. And just to share context, everybody, in case you guys didn't watch the game and are wondering how good this kid is, why was he so hyped up? Well, when you bear in mind that Wazorowski topped out 102 miles per hour in his 4-seam fastball today and topped out 96 while setting 94 and 898 on the 4-seam, yeah, there's decently good reason as to why there's hype. His changeup sat 92 today and topped out 94. I mean, like, is this Jacob deGrom? Like, what am I looking at? That's how ridiculous this velocity is. For mind you, a Jacob deGrom tall, lanky type starter at 6'7". So that's what you got there in Jacob Wazorowski. Happy to see the Mets kick his ass today, but I know damn well that he's probably going to torture Mets plenty in the future. So we will take these small victories for what they are right now, certainly. Alvin, great member, 7 months. Wardy, I've been saying all along they need Nimmo in the leadoff spot. It's crazy to say that, but it did work today. You know, especially when Lindor has been struggling as much as he has the past month of baseball, they needed some type of change. And listen, I don't think that this is going to consistently work. You know, I think this worked today in large part because of the fact that of the heavy lefty implementation. We know that Mendy isn't going to do this every night. We know that he's actually going to break away and change this based on matchup versus if you're facing a righty or a lefty. But tomorrow, the Mets are facing a lefty, so again, do not expect the same exact lineup, everybody. It will probably be a bit adjusted. Now, I guess a big question is, Nimmo usually rakes against lefties. We know Lindor is going to be perfectly fine from the right side. Why not have Lindor back in the 2-hole tomorrow? Again, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And to see how things go with Nimmo as your leadoff man against Jose Quintana, who this Mets team knows very well. And while Quintana has the same ERA as David Pearson this season at 3.33, what is also true is that unlike David Pearson, who has a fantastic K-to-walk ratio, Jose Quintana only has like 10 of 15 more strikeouts than he does walks this season. So the Mets have a great chance tomorrow to beat up on Quintana early, work his counts, and hopefully get him out of this ball game. You know, not much farther for Wazorowski today. If you can get him out and say 4.2 innings, that'd be amazing. Obviously, time will tell. Quintana's going to have a little bit of chip on his shoulder, not coming back to Queens when, obviously, in hindsight, the Mets should have brought him back. That's something that I was calling for heading into the year because you could never have enough depth, even with the 110% tax. It just made endless sense, in my opinion. But I won't beat that drum anymore because he's the enemy, and hopefully we can kick that enemy's ass tomorrow, everybody. And we'll be watching it live together with Giraffe Neck Mark, Mike from Stark Raven Sports, live here on YouTube and in the Playback app for all my playback.tv/WardyNYM members that want to actually watch a Mets game live in real time with your guy Wardy. But as we continue to get back into this one, Stephen A., how we doing, baby? Happy to have you in here. Zach Flickerton, how are you? Jose Gonzalez, how are you? Michael Valenti, how are you, my friend? All you guys chiming in live in the replay. I hope you guys are having yourself a fantastic evening. But as we go on to continue breaking down this ballgame, everybody, we would see then for the New York Mets. After that, Brandon Nimmo, 2-out single. And after Aaron Ashby comes in the southpaw, Nimmo would go on to steal his 8th stolen bag of the year. And quietly, everybody, listen to this statistic, because I bet you didn't know this. Brandon Nimmo, when looking at his stolen base ability, just how good has he been? Well, Brandon Nimmo now has stolen 23 of his past 24 bags that he's attempted. So pretty darn good if you ask me. So going back to last season, Brandon Nimmo has been nails when called upon, when he's actually been running, trying to steal said bags. So as we continue on from there, Francisco Lindor would get on with a hit by pitch. So there's a runner in scoring position, a runner at first, 2 away for Juan Soto to have himself potentially his biggest blast yet, or something of quality when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position. Instead, what does Juan Soto do? He strikes out swinging on the breaking ball, and that was frustrating to see. I understood it was a lefty-lefty matchup. I also completely understand that in the case of Juan Soto against lefties, he's one of the best in the game. So, I have confidence in Juan Soto usually when he's facing a southpaw, but unfortunately, there was a slider that was beautifully placed bottom of the zone that Soto just swung right through terribly, and that did it there for the inning. Mets strand runners at first and second, and that still has them up by 5 as we get to the top of the 5th. In the top of the 5th, Eric Haas gets on with a single. Sal Frelick pops out after Brett Beatty makes a gorgeous diving slide there that we see in foul territory along the third base side. And then we see William Contreras on a called strike 3, and that does it there for the 5th inning. Shout out to Blade Tidwell, who again was absolutely nails in this one, everybody. As we continued on, we would see Craig Yoho come in for Ashby, and what a name. Yoho. Hey-oh, Yoho. Pete Alonso with a pop-out. Jeff McNeil then with a single. And then we would see a pop-up from Tyrone and then a Brett Beatty strikeout. That does there for a clean inning of work for the Brewers. Now, Blade Tidwell, you know how I was just hyping him up. Well, I also have to tell you guys that while Blade Tidwell was nails his first couple innings, his final inning or so, not so great. And again, only so much you could do when you're facing some elite hitters, especially the top hitters in this lineup, not named William Contreras. That was most notably guys like Christian Yelich. And Yelly ripped himself a Yelly bomb because you can't throw sinkers down the pipe, down the dick, middle, and expect a guy like a former MVP in Yelich not to hit that out the effing stratosphere. Instead, he blasts himself his 17th home run this season, and that cuts the deficit there to 4 runs. The problem, however, everybody, is not only does Christian Yelich get in on the hit parade when it comes to home runs, we would see the same happen with Jackson Chourio, who again torched the Mets all last season in his rookie year, including postseason play. And now, just like how Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor went back-to-back, well, so did the Milwaukee Brewers here. They go back-to-back, and that was a 400-foot home run, 105 off the bat, off of Tidwell there, everybody, and that made it a 5-2 New York Metropolitan lead still, and that was a 4-seam fastball 94 right down the pipe. Again, when you make it batting practice, normally MLB quality hitters are going to hit said batting practice, and that's what we found ourselves in. Rhys Hoskins then rips himself a 1-out single, and Danilo Nunez comes in, everybody, who then gives up his single right away to Anthony Seigler. And then we see Joey Ortiz, who torched the Mets in game 1 when Ortiz has literally been one of the worst batters in all the National League this year, if not the worst, mind you. He grounds out to make it a 5-3 deficit now. So well within reach are the Milwaukee Brewers. And mind you, everybody, while the Mets have been 3-14 over the past 17 games, they have not blown a lead more than 4 runs. If they lost this one today, it would have been their first loss this season, blowing a 5-run lead to that magnitude, or at least a 5-run lead that they would have blown in this stretch. They might have already done that like one other time this year, but thankfully that was not the case tonight. And hopefully that 50th win does come tomorrow, Eric. Fingers crossed, baby. Mets are now at 49-38, so awfully close. As we get to the remainder of that inning, Eric Haas strikes out swinging everybody. So then we get to the bottom of the 6th, and Ronnie Mauricio gets on with a leadoff walk. And then we see Francisco Lindor with a 2-out base knock would drive Ronnie in. Shadow Lindor there with another RBI on the day, makes it 6-3 New York Metropolitans, everybody. And then Juan Soto gets on there with a single, and then we would see Pete Alonso ground out to end the inning. In the top of the 7th, the Brewers go down in order after Mr. Dickie Lovelady comes in for Danilo Nunez, and give credit where credit's due. Lovelady gets a ground out, a line out, and a called strike 3 then on Christian Yelich. No, it doesn't have to make sense, just know it happens. So Dickie Lovelady, while there was nothing to love about him 72 hours ago, there's all more things to love about Mr. Dickie Lovelady all these days later. As we get to the bottom of the 7th, Jeff McNeil, Tyrone Taylor, Brett Beatty, 1, 2, 3 are out of here. Ryan Stant comes in there for the 8th inning. He gives up a leadoff single to Jackson Chourio. He then strikes out promptly Bryce Terrain and a foul tip, which was a nice strikeout there that we saw 98 gas right down the pipe by Stanek. Rhys Hoskins would then strike out swinging thanks to some nasty, nasty, nasty high heat from Mr. Ryan Stanek, 100 miles per hour up and away, and he makes Mr. Reese pay. Love to see that, everybody. Then we would see pinch hitter Caleb Durbin come in, and Durbin would get on with a 2-out walk. So there's 2 on, 2 away, and here comes, everybody, Mr. Edwin Diaz. Sugar is looking for the 4-out save, and he needs to get a big out here on Jake Bauers, who comes in as a pinch hitter there for Mr. Joey Ortiz. And what happens, everybody, it goes in Edwin Diaz's favor. We would see Jake Bauers strike out down the pipe, everybody, as he would take a 4-seam fastball, 98 down and in, and that does it there for the inning. We escape that jam, and Edwin Diaz continues to look nails as we then get set for the 9th inning. But before we get to the bottom of the 9th, or top of the 9th inning, rather, let's talk about what happens in the bottom of the 8th. As after Hayden Senger gets on with a walk, we would see him be driven in, everybody, because Travis Jankowski comes in as a pinch runner, and Janky goes first to home, everybody. Feels like it's back to Jankowski and the Mets a couple years ago. Love to see Jankowski back with this club, the pinch running god. Even at a young 34 years of age, he's a speed demon for this team, and Lindor drives him in by ripping himself a double there that we saw down the first baseline, everybody. Lindor's 16th double this season, going along with his 17 home runs on the year, and just like that, the Mets are up 7-3 in this ball game, everybody. And then we would see Juan Soto get intentionally walked, and then we see Edwin Diaz strike out Isaac Collins, strike out Sal Frelick, and get a ground out on William Contreras, everybody, and that does it for the New York Mets as they go on to win this one by a whopping final score here of 7-3. Before we get into breaking down more on the key takeaways from the Mets offense, as well as we'll get into their woes on what didn't go right in their doubleheader in Game 1 today, along with some other key takeaways, I do just want to give a real quick shout out to our Mason friends here on the platform that many of you guys know at BetUS that has you covered with all of your sports betting needs. Head over to betus.com.pa today should you guys have interest, everybody. And as you guys can see here, if you guys want to utilize our promo code YouTube150, that way you two get a 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second and your third, up to $2,000 for whatever you guys want to bet on. And right here were the odds for Game 1 and Game 2. Interestingly enough, the Mets were the doubleheader favorite pretty much in both these games for the most part. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say that. They were the smidge favorite there in Game 1 at -114, and then they were at even odds that we saw there in Game 2. So if anything, the Brewers had the ever so slight edge. But thankfully for the Mets, they found themselves in the win column in Game 2. So if you guys like to do your daily plays like this, picks, props, you name it, check us out there at BetUS, and thank you guys kindly for doing exactly that. But make sure you do it responsibly. Otherwise, I don't want you guys to get involved at all, because I don't want to hear from you guys saying, Wardy, I can't handle this and it's your fault. No, it's not. Just please do not get involved if you feel like you guys cannot handle gambling or casino. Normal things, normal reaction. Again, if you guys feel like you shouldn't touch the bottle, don't touch the bottle. You see that big red button? If you feel like you can't handle not touching the big red button, then walk away from the big red button. Don't even get near it. Thank you so much for that. All right, guys, now to get further into this, let's now talk about not only your comments and reactions in the live chat. So if you guys have any specific questions, comments that you guys got for me, please make sure to relay right now. I greatly appreciate that. But as we continue on, let's highlight the following. Let's get into the key standouts today, starting with what we saw there, everybody, on the hitting end. And it begins here with Mr. Brandon Nimmo. What a game for Brandon Nimmo. It's hard for Brandon not to be the player of the game today because he got the party started. In actuality, if Nimmo was the only man that got that big hit that we saw to begin that Game 2 of the ball game, the Mets would have still won in the end. So for all those reasons, I do have to give my true player of the game to Brandon Nimmo today. He went 2 for 5 with the grand salami that he ripped to the right side, 361 feet there. And we saw 4 RBIs on the day, a 254 average, a 771 OPS. Brandon Nimmo now with 16 home runs on the season is quietly on pace now to have himself another 25 to 30 home run campaign. Brandon Nimmo does have the power, he's had the potential, and while he's not that on-base guy like what he used to be for this Mets team, if he can consistently slug, consistently clutch up, and get more gap-to-gap ability, then no one, including myself, is going to find themselves complaining. Want to give a big shout out, everybody, to our guy here in Brandon Nimmo, and what I thought was a fantastic day for him. And now I want to hear from you guys, everybody. How impressed have you been with Brandon Nimmo this season? Have you been underwhelmed with him so far this season still? Are you thinking this is right around where you expected Brandon Nimmo to be? Whatever your thoughts are on the Brandon Nimmo front, please make sure to relay them in the chat, and thank you kindly for that. But obviously, we got to talk about the guy that you're seeing there in the highlight for a second. That is also Mr. Francisco Lindor, more like 2025 NL All-Star starter at shortstop there in Francisco Lindor. Lindor not only hit well from the left side today, but he hit just as as well from the right side. On his Puerto Rican jersey night, Francisco Lindor came to play, everybody. Look at that sweet, sexy swing. Just look at that. Love the highlights. Love the camera quality, too. Shout out Mets for making that happen, baby. Look at that little slow-mo there, too. Sexy. Love to see it. But Mr. Smile has been absolutely fantastic today, and this was huge because this comes after Lindor has been very underwhelming at the plate that we've seen over the past 2-3+ weeks. You know, he's been right in that heart of the Mets not performing well. But the good thing, at least with Lindor even slumping, is that even with this slumping, it isn't as bad as the slumps that we've seen even last season or a couple years before that. Lindor has been fairly steady this season for the most part, and good to see him obviously get back in a groove tonight. Hopefully that can continue and transpire tomorrow, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. But in all seriousness, everybody, Francisco Lindor, our leader, who now has 46 RBIs on the season, and mind you, Brandon Nimmo has 47, so they're both on pace to pretty much have identical offensive years at this rate, which is kind of crazy to say, everybody. I mean, it makes sense, but it's also kind of nuts. Like, Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor are both equally on pace to have themselves 30 home run seasons and, you know, north of 100 RBIs. Like, anywhere from 85 to 100 in that category, which is pretty sick, if you ask me. Let's see. Francisco Lindor, let me look him up on Wikipedia. Oh, you don't know? That's funny. I love that. Can we just agree firing Chavez isn't going to be the magic pill already? 100%. I don't think it was ever going to be the magic pill, but at the same time, it's like push comes to shove. At some point, changes need to be had. You just have to figure out what those changes need to be. And when you have a hitting coach that's constantly pondering how he needs to make himself better as a hitting coach, I think that in itself is a bit of a problem. In his recent interview that he shared with the New York Post, I didn't find all that encouraging in response to how the Mets can get out of their woes. It was pretty much more of like, yeah, we know we need to come together collectively as a group to get out of this. But yeah, they're constantly asking themselves, and they're saying how difficult it is to find this balance, you know, on trying to get the best out of the players and the best results right now. I'm not saying it's easy, but again, like, come on now. Like, there's a reason why the Mets have stuck out like a sore thumb all season long with runners in scoring position. You know, it's not every batter's fault. It is the guys' fault, obviously, that go up there and swing and hack away. But to a degree, it does fall on the hitting coaches, especially when you see how drastic a team can perform based on trends and certain hitting philosophy that you see them on other teams in baseball. But, you know, we'll expand more on that in the show should you guys wish. That's just what I have to say about it now. But Francisco Lindor, big game for him. Love to see that from not leadoff Lindor today, but two-hole Lindor. And we'll take that, everybody. Speaking of this Mets offense, again, this is what you got from the Mets lineup today and their Game 2 victory. We saw here the Mets now, Brandon Nimmo, 2 for 5 with the grand salami. 254 average, 771 OPS. Francisco Lindor with the home run, 3-hit day, 3 RBI day for Mr. All-Star, 261 average, 787 OPS. Juan Soto, the one and only, 1 for 3 with 2 walks and a strikeout. And that strikeout wasn't important at bat, but I digress. Soto is still at a 257 average and 895 OPS, just under 900 there. Pete Alonso, 0 for today, but still a 287 average and a 906 OPS. Jeff McNeil, 2 for 4 in this one. Always productive. I appreciate that, Jeff. 257 average, 817 OPS. Again, McNeil isn't laying the world on fire, but he's just doing what he needs to do while playing rock-solid defense. Tyrone Taylor and playing in center and second base, mind you, so that's been clutch about him. Tyrone Taylor, 0 for in this one. He's cooled off quite a bit with the bat we've seen as of late. Taylor, 219 average, 596 OPS. Brett Beatty, 0 for 3 with a run scored and a walk, but a pair of strikeouts, 222 average, 673 OPS. Ronnie Mauricio, 0 for 2 with a pair of runs scored and walks, 217 average, 676 OPS. Luis Torrens did not get an at-bat. Hayden Senger, 1 for 2 with a run scored, 179 average, 425 OPS, and that was it there on the offensive end, everybody. So to transfer from offense, let's talk about here on pitching, and this is what you got on the pitching end, folks. Huascar Brosnan did what he needed to do. Blade Tidwell, again, wasn't fantastic, but he was fine, and that's fine. The Mets just needed Blade Tidwell to be fine today. In Tidwell's arsenal, everybody, he had 5 pitches he threw. He utilized the four-seam fastball a lot, was heavily relying on his four-seam 48% of the time, as a matter of fact, and it fluctuated a little bit in the velo. He topped out 98. We know he's got the gas, but he sat right around 95.5. So not terrible at all. Sweeper, 25% of the arsenal. He threw the second most today in Blake Tidwell. Topped out 85, sat right around 83. Then we saw the sinker at 16%, topped out 97, sat right around 94. The slider at 10%, topped out 88, and sat right around 87. And And the changeup there at 1% that we saw sat right around 84.5 miles per hour. So Blade Tidwell, I don't really have anyone to give a final line. So collectively for Mets pitching in this game too, I will give them as a collective group a total score today after allowing 4 walks and striking out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 strikeouts. 11 strikeouts to 3 walks is a rock solid ratio. 3 earned runs today is perfectly fine. Mets pitching from your guy Wardy is going to get a rock solid 7 out of 10 today. Nothing too sexy, but did exactly what they need to do for the most part. Now, when we go to game 1, it's a different discussion. Because when we go to game 1, everybody, and let's go to game 1 now. Well, I will be fairly brief when it comes to game 1 because, again, it ain't about how you start, it's about how you finish. And that's obviously what I'm going to be looking at when I'm evaluating this Mets team heading into tomorrow, because what am I going to do? Sit here and let the game 1 of the doubleheader bother me so much, even if the Mets win tomorrow? I can't be like that. I got to look ahead the same way the players and the coaches are at least trying to do. But as we see here, and I pulled up the raw numbers, but that's what happened to the Mets in game 1. Freddie Peralta won 6 innings of 2 earned run baseball. He was fantastic. And then their bullpen shut the door down. The Mets had no hitting whatsoever after they had their blunder there that we saw. But what I want to show you guys was not just the Brewers pitching, so that was my apologies. I put the wrong thing in there. Let me take that out. Let me show you guys what I was referring to. When we expand more on the Mets pitching, today, Clay Holmes. To give you guys the quick rundown, here's what happened. Clay Holmes walked too many guys today, like he typically does, but he was cruising otherwise. He was fine. He was fine. He got through the big behemoths in the lineup in the Brewers, and then he's pulled from this ball game when it's just the bottom of the order to face and guys like Bryce Terrain and then Joey Ortiz. Even when you're facing more of the bottom feeders in the lineup, it didn't matter. The mindset the entire way was that Carlos Mendoza was going to be pulling Clay Holmes. And it appears that Mendy was going to be pulling Clay Holmes around this regardless of the status of the ball game, meaning that he was on, to a degree, a pitch limit, because Clay Holmes, who hasn't been stretched as a starter until this season since 2018, the Mets are not going to allow to throw 100 pitches every time out there. It's not going to happen consistently, and because of that reason, the Mets took Clay Holmes out of the ball game. Now, here's where I think there's a divide with fans. There's a contingent of Mets fans that really do not like Clay Holmes being pulled from this ball game on 90 pitches. And while I hear you completely, especially when you bear in mind who those batters faced for Reed Garrett that became batting practice, the same counter should be that, one, Reed Garrett should be able to handle that situation after multiple days off, rather. I know Garrett's been batting practice the past month and a half plus, and maybe that's where Carlos Mendoza should have had more feel as a manager, knowing that this bullpen still had rest for multiple days. Why not go to a different option than a guy that's been notoriously horrendous as of late with inherited runners on? That alone didn't make sense. And I think that is what you could have more of a problem when it comes to Carlos Mendoza and his managerial decisions today than the other part, which is the fact of just pulling Clay Holmes on 90 pitches. Because Clay Holmes being pulled on 90 pitches is likely far more of an issue that had to do with David Stearns, obviously not wanting to go much farther than that than anything else. And mind you, David Stearns is the culprit behind the current rotation configuration. That can't be lost in this either, everybody. The Mets decided to sign Clay Holmes, and they knew that the risk in signing Clay Holmes is that you're going to have a lot of outings with him where you don't necessarily get him to go deep, and you're going to have the walk rate be fairly high. So that's what we're seeing right now, everybody. And Stephen A., you have a fantastic night, my man. Thank you so much for chiming in. And we did see Clay Holmes speak post-game today by saying that, he was getting a little tired with the heat, but didn't feel like, the tank was empty, basically. He said that he could have kept going. But the decision makers are the decision makers, is basically what he said. So take of that information as you will. But the only thing that I need to really talk to you guys about from the Mets game 1 loss today, 7-2, where they were out hit 10-2. Again, they were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. They had no hits whatsoever after that 6th inning blunder where they give up the 5 earned runs. But let's get to not just where the ball game's tied, but ultimately where the Mets lost this one, all right? Because in this 6th inning, everybody, as we fast forward there, it's a 2-2 tied ball game. The Mets initially were down 1-0 after we saw Frelick hit a leadoff bomb right away off of Holmes. But then Holmes got in a groove a bit, and the Mets scored some nice runs there between a Brett Beatty sac fly and a Pete Alonso RBI single up the middle. They got a couple runs, and the Mets were up 2-1, everybody, until there, and I apologize, it wasn't tied yet, that we get to the 6th inning. But in the 6th inning, this is where everything really rears its head for the Mets in a negative fashion in game 1 of the doubleheader, because Christian Yelich got on with a leadoff walk, And after Yelly got on with a leadoff walk, Carlos Mendoza did say that he was going to have him face Trio regardless, but that would probably be it. He faced Trio, and he gets a fly out. So here comes Reed Garrett, and Reed Garrett's facing Bryce Terrain and Joey Ortiz. You know, he's facing, and Bryce Terrain today was batting, what was he? He was more around the middle of the lineup today. So when I get to the bottom, I'm talking more in the Joey Ortizes of the world. Regardless, Terrain, who I know is a rock solid player, he's batting almost 300 this year. He right away rips batting practice off of Reed Garrett right away. And it's a double, his 14th of the year, and ties the ball game in a snap of a finger just like that. Why? Because of poor placement by Mr. Reed Garrett. If you guys are curious as to where the pitch placement was by Reed in particular, it was the first pitch that he threw today, which was a 91 cutter upstairs. Middle, just way too much meat on that, and that was going to make it 2-2. Isaac Collins then gets on with a single. Jake Bauers gets on with a walk. So Reed Garrett can't locate to save his effing life. And here's Joey Ortiz, who, mind you, has been hitting horrendously this season. Joey Ortiz was fantastic last year in his kind of breakout rookie year. Not getting a whole lot of that so far this year from Milwaukee up until this at-bat. You get 4 pitches. And then what happens on pitch number 5? Let's just throw a cutter, middle, right down the dick, and see what happens. And what happens is a grand slam is what happens. Actually kind of crazy how eerily similar these ball games were for both teams. I mean, in their victories, at least, in the sense that the Mets won backed by a grand slam. The Brewers won backed by a grand slam. They both won by a final score of at least 7 runs, in which they both did. And they also, both today, even though one came in a win for the Mets and the other came in a loss for the Brewers, they also both hit back-to-back home runs. So very interesting on the similarities between the two in this series thus far. But that was it. When Joey Ortiz hit that grand slam, I mean, that was the Mets' key demise. Then Reed Garrett gets the next quick outs, but it doesn't matter at that point. The ball game's already over. They literally do not hit a lick the remainder of that ball game. The only time the Mets got on base for the remainder of that ball game from the bottom of the 6th on was a hit by pitch to Pete Alonso. That is all she wrote, everybody. So that is what you got there on the pitching end. And then on the hitting end from game 1, let me pull this up for you guys real quick to check out should you guys have interest right here, right now, because we are going to be wrapping up the show here soon. Let's see here. And we will again be live. We have a video dropping earlier in the AM tomorrow, guys. We'll also have a live stream during the Mets game itself and a live post game. I know that tonight was a underwhelming showing from you guys, from not you guys watching, but to the ones that aren't watching, because I know a lot of Mets fans are not happy about the Mets right now. They really don't care if they're, if they're going to win a game, because they need them to get on a heater to start to care again. And I completely understand. I just hope the Mets fall in that category soon, naturally. Let's see here, everybody. Profar is back to torture us, Zach. Is Profar back from his suspension now already? I mean, who cares? I mean, the Braves, he's not even eligible for postseason, and the Braves just lost Schwallenbach pretty much until sometime in September, and they lost Sale till sometime into September. And we broke that down on the channel. In case you guys haven't seen it, make sure you do so, not on the channel, but rather in the Bleacher Report app earlier today. Is on the community tab on the YouTube channel for you guys to check out should you have interest. But this was the Mets lineup today where they didn't hit at all in game 1. So just in case you guys were wondering how bad was it in game 1, it was pretty darn bad. So final things I have to share with you all before I wrap this up and get out of here are the following. Do the Mets stay with this lineup now, everybody? Now that they have the success that they did in game 2, I think you got it at least tomorrow. I know they're going to slightly adjust it. They might not start Mauricio tomorrow against the Southpaw and Quintana. I think you still should. Just give him the looks there. Why not? Vientos feels like he's a lock to get a start tomorrow, but how's Vientos going to fare? As if I'm not mistaken, I think he's kind of had reverse splits so far this year against lefties, which too is not ideal. But we really, really need him to get him figured out. And home run, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. If we can get him to be effective in any way, shape, or form, this will be massive for this team. Because right now, Vientos isn't even a lock as an everyday player because of how inconsistent he's been, and his injury kind of throwing a further wrench into things. That in itself is not ideal, but what at least is ideal, everybody, is the fact that the Mets finally found themselves getting back in the win column thanks to guys like Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo helping lead the way. But that's going to do it for this one, everybody. I'd like to thank you guys all again so much for watching this one live on a replay. If you found yourself enjoying tonight's post-game show, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way out, and be on the lookout for more content here in the near future, everybody. Like I said, I did promise each and every one of you guys that we will be planning to do live callers. So depending on the status of tomorrow night's game, we may in fact make that happen then. It will kind of go indicative on the status though, because if it's a low game that barely anyone wants to call in on, we won't bother. But if it's a big game that people do really start to get excited about and want to call in on, then we'll certainly make that happen. That's what I promise you guys for this week. So watch party, potential call-in show tomorrow. We got plenty more things rolling out on the platform throughout the week. So thank you guys again for watching. A Flow with the $5 haul right before we get out of here. Yo, Wordy just got on section 114, was rocking where I first met you. Oh, that's awesome, A Flow. Thank you so much, Alex, for the donation. I appreciate that, brother. Hope you had an absolute blast, baby. And yeah, shout out all you guys again. I will be at Citi Field on Saturday. Big group that I'll be with. A lot of awesome people will be tailgating pregame, and they'll be into the ballpark there. I will be in a suite with my awesome friends at Moo, our amazing sponsor on the platform, for a good chunk of the ball game. But for the time that I'm not in the suite, be on the lookout for me in section 115 area is where I will likely be there, barring changes. So whether I'm in section 115 or if I'm more in the suite area, which is more in the 200s, be on the lookout for your guy Wardy. It's going to be a packed ballpark, Subway Series, Saturday. Going to be probably batting practice, pitching wise for both the Mets and the Yankees, who have not been playing well, but we'll see what happens, guys. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you guys are watching this. And this is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby.